All right, so I guess we will get started, and with any luck, Mr. Quiggs will join us very shortly. Oh, Pete, you couldn't resist, could you?
What?
You know what?
Is he still alive, is he?
Stop it. All right, everybody. There is no earth-breaking news for us to deliver to you at this town hall meeting, which in itself is noteworthy because each and every town hall meeting we've had in the recent past has included earth-shattering, changing information. But I'm happy to say that the time of the acting board is rapidly coming to a close, and the new permanent Vatpac one, once he's appointed, should be ready to take over a fully functioning machine once again. And we've got lots of exciting things happening this year, more about which we will publish after our board meeting next week. Something to say there, Callum?
No, sorry.
So this evening, it's good to see so many of you here, and we basically want to treat this one as a Q&A. So if you guys have stuff that you want to discuss with us, or things you want us to consider at our board meeting, or possible projects that you would like your new board to work on, this would be a good start to bring them up here. So, as usual, if you want to pose any anonymous questions or comments, you can send those through to me on private text and I'll read them out without adding your name to them. And otherwise, if you want to speak, just tap your PTT button and we shall go down the list and respond to each of you in turn, hopefully. Well, this is shaping up to be the shortest town hall meeting we've had in a while. No one has any questions? No one has any issues? No one has anything they'd like to discuss?
Oh, I've got issues.
Like,
Hello.
This isn't a shrink session.
One question that's been asked of me on private chat, any plans to enact any real-world social events? Yes, thank you for that question, and that's great prompting, because the one thing I probably did want to mention and then forgot about is many of you will be aware that this is Vatpac's 20th year in existence, and we are actively working on hopefully getting a multi-city social event happening all at the same time, where we all get together linked up via Skype or other such electronic software, and sort of have a bit of a dinner, inviting all of the Vatpac founders and previous board members to come along and catch up with the community. So yes, that's one real world social event. Another anonymous question, are we able to have more panic stations within Australia? Callum, that's yours.
Sure. Yes, we are planning more panic stations. We've got a couple of major events in planning for next month, which we're just waiting on a bit of stuff from IT, and then we should be up and on our way with advertising those. But yeah, like that'll be our goal. Exploring preferably some airports that we haven't seen in a while as well, featuring our major events.
Another anonymous question that's come through. I have seen a decline in VA interactions with Vatpac. Is the oncoming board intending to offer more for affiliates? If so, how do they intend to achieve? Well, my response to that would be, what did you have in mind? It's one thing to come to us and say, are we intending to offer more? What more are you looking for? There is regular communication with the VAs, and even very recently we asked the VAs, what more would you like? And not one of them offered up any suggestions, so I'm a bit surprised that one's coming out now.
And I don't think anything important to note, while I think that we've lost a couple of VAs, which is not necessarily due to anyone's part. More the VA has disappeared itself, but there's nothing, no decline in what we're doing with VAs. There's nothing different to what we've always done past.
So that person that made that anonymous comment is invited to email me just as anonymously with a list of ideas you'd like us to consider in the offering more to our affiliates category, and we would be happy to consider that. I have no more anonymous questions that have come through to me, so does anybody have anything they'd like to say?
Come on, Nick. I know you want to say something.
I wouldn't be very constructive, so I'll keep my mouth shut.
All right.
Okay, I'm trying to think of news that I can share with you in the meantime. The only other thing that we have in the works is we'll be moving all of our IT infrastructure over to locally based servers and some whiz-bang new stuff that I understand absolutely nothing about, but I'm told it's really cool. So we have that to look forward to fairly soon. Our new ATC training ticketing system, I believe, is still almost ready for launch, but not quite there yet. But we'll be putting our foot on the accelerator for that in the near future as well.
Tracy, one question.
Mm-hmm.
At any time soon, do we envisage the old version of AT Assist and Pilot Assist coming back?
Yes, the new old version of ATC Assist is ready to go, but it will not run on our current infrastructure. So that is just waiting for us to push the green light on the new servers, and then yes, that will make a very welcome return.
Oh, good.
So it doesn't mean
Estimated time frame for that, sir?
Next couple of months.
Okay.
It really does depend on how long it takes for the appointment of the new Vatpac 1. It's in direct relation.
Yep, so the system's 95% ready to go. As soon as the server change happens, you can expect it to see in the coming weeks after that.
User joined your channel.
Okay, any other business?
I'm also just curious, the other thing that Nick said was Pilot Assist. Is there any plans at the moment to look at doing a Pilot Assist in the future? Or bringing it back?
That sounds like a Harrison question, since I don't know what's involved in making that happen.
It depends on what functionality you would like in Pilot Assist. Pilot Assist, from what I see, is mainly two sections of ATC Assist. That's the SID Star Finder, that pilots can look up what SID or star to take for their departure on a specified runway, and also finding a route for their journey. Currently that is on ATC Assist, and it's also available on the Vatpac main site for the route finder, but possibly we could have a Pilot Assist that I think we used to have a long time ago.
Does that answer your question, Callum? Which
User
obviously you
joined.
had to wait for a town hall meeting to ask and couldn't have asked him any other time.
No, I just think it's something that I've talked with a few people about lately, and I just wanted to sort of see what the possibility of that was.
If there is a need for it, it's definitely something we can easily do.
Cool.
Anything else?
Sure. What's morale like behind the scenes now? Is everyone happy and all the problems that we had before when the board walked out all solved now and everything's A-okay?
Well, I don't know that a lot of people tell me directly how they feel, but certainly the few that do appear to all have a positive, sunny outlook on Vatpac's future again, as do I. I am very cognizant of the fact that we have a very young board that's come in, and whoever takes over the permanent role of Vatpac 1 will have to continue their mentorship and guidance of these guys. But I have every confidence in the young guys' abilities, and they certainly seem to be settling into the role well, but maybe you can ask one of them directly.
Yeah. What about communication with the regional and VatGov level? Is that all back to normal now?
Yes, I've seen no indication otherwise. I have a good relationship with the VP of Regions, and he assures me in the next few weeks we'll have a new regional director to work with, and for the remaining term of my acting directorship, I look forward to working with whoever that is.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
All right. Anything else? Cool. Well, that was short and sweet, and hopefully only happy times ahead for everyone. And hopefully we'll see you all again at our next town hall meeting, which I reckon will be about 6 months from now. I'd like to see them happen at least twice a year. Thanks also to whoever's recording it in the background, and we'll make it available wherever it is. Stuff like that becomes made available these days.
Flyboy's got it all done.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Tracy, just, I don't know, probably it's been said before, but I'd just like to personally say thank you for taking over the board when everybody bailed out. The world's full of sayers, but not many doers, and you're in the latter version, and thank you very much for basically saving us.
I think you overestimate my influence on the community. By any means, I don't think I saved us. We would have done just fine there, even if someone else had stepped into the role. But I was happy to do so under the circumstances, and yeah, it's been educational.
Well, that's the point. You actually did step up to the plate, whereas probably a lot of people wouldn't. So, from that point of view, I'd like to thank you, and thanks for your efforts.
Yeah, here. Thank you.
Appreciate the kind words, guys. Now get out of here and go flying or controlling.
Good on you, Madam Tracy.
Hey,
Guys.
I got a problem. I can't do either.
Well, you've never been able to, Nick.
Guys, there's been a lot of occasions where people have come on Teamspeak and talked to a staff member about something, whether that be quality of controllers, quality of pilots, any personal issues that you may have that you've talked about with a staff member. Like, this has been really
Don't you have
short.
the married at first sight stuff?
Yeah, but I encourage people to actually, you know, if you want to talk about these topics, this is a public forum and it's a great opportunity to get, you know, the majority of the board's views on these topics. Because I know I've had a few conversations, especially in the last week, with a few of you, and like that, what I've said is honestly just my opinion and what I would do. But I mean, you know, while you've got the board here, if you do want that opportunity to ask, you know, what are we doing for this? What are we doing for that? Or offer any suggestions on what we can do to improve anything that any of our services or anything like that. Now's the time to say them.
Well, I do have another question that was sent to me anonymously, Callum, and it's one that pops up every few years, and it's definitely your turn this time. So here it is. One question about Milk Run. Has there ever been a proposal to make it on Sunday so Western Australia and Eastern Australia can all be on at the same time?
User joined your channel.
One thing that I can say is about something that I've noticed with events, and this is also something I was going to mention today, now that I remember.
User joined your channel.
Something that we've sort of noticed with events lately is we can put an event on a Saturday. We can do it. People ask for an event on a Saturday. And to be fair, there is traffic to warrant an event on a Saturday. Every Saturday, we have loads of people flying. The airspace is always quite busy. However, we found that our events weren't that successful. And I don't think it's about, personally, I don't think it's just about where the event is or how the event's run. I think it's just people, when they come on a weekend, they enjoy spending that time doing what they want to do and don't want to be confined to an event. And something that which is on a Monday, it's a bit different. You've already been at school, you've been at work, you know, you've got a timetable. We all know it's on a Monday that we fly between Melbourne and Sydney. I think on a weekend, everybody is more casual and they want to fly to where they want to fly. So I would like to propose, or I'd just like to put it out there to see what people's ideas on this are. VATNZ have a booking system for their air traffic controllers, which their air traffic controllers use. Even back in the day, Vatpac, it was more common to see Vatpac controllers booking their positions prior to logging on. Now, I wouldn't propose a booking system because that in itself, I think, has a lot of issues where people will start expecting that when they book a position, they'll be on. I like to think, get some feedback on what people's ideas would be if we created some sort of availability system where a controller can put on where they'll be controlling and at what time. And sure, there might sometimes unforeseeable circumstances, they might not be able to in the end, but would it incline people more, especially on a weekend, to fly and plan a flight where that air traffic control is going to be, even though it may not be logged on yet, if there's that availability there and you know how long somebody will be logged on for? Like, just general feedback. Do you reckon that something like that would work, and would it be appealing to you as members?
Or what about the other way around? What about having a request for ATC system on the website where pilots who are planning a flight can say, I'm flying between A and B at this time, and if anyone would like to log on, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. I mean, just thinking of a system that exists now. VRoute is a system that exists now, which is, I think, the back end of that NZ system integrates with VRoute. But as a pilot, you can book a flight when you're going to do it, and it's the same thing for ATC. You can book a time when you're going to do a flight, when you're going to control. So if we have that kind of booking / availability system, would people be more inclined to fly in that airspace where the controller is? Because I honestly find that if we do an event, people just aren't really interested in doing that event. They're more interested in flying where they want to fly. But would it influence you differently if we had a system where air traffic controllers were sort of giving you their availability when they're expected to log on, kind of thing?
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. I mean, I'm all for the booking system. I think that's a great idea. Any other improvements is excellent. I mean, Europe definitely uses the booking system. If we can improvise or use some sort of similar system, I think definitely that's a positive step forward.
Kyle, you got an open mic.
Whoops, sorry.
I don't
feel
know
like it
about
would
that.
just be underused.
My opinion is that I don't know about a lot of other pilots, but I think a lot of people would go on Batspy these days, see where the ATC is and fly accordingly. I think the booking system is only relevant if you, like, for example, have a major event and you need to reserve a space.
Yeah.
For. So I'm not sure if that would encourage booking an ATC position. Doesn't necessarily encourage the flying.
It's more like, I think a lot of people, or it also gives people an idea, not only when ATC will log on, but when they'll log off. So you have an idea, well, okay, looking at this, that controller said they're going to be online for 4 hours. between, let's say they're on snowy. Well, I know I could do possibly 3 flights between Sydney and Melbourne in that 4 hours. So, all right, let's do that instead of thinking, oh, well, let's fly in Queensland today. If you have that availability there, will it influence you to do flights in controlled airspace?
No, I don't think so, because I think really, in our hobbies, I think it's more an impulsive thing. Really, I mean, you wake up in the morning, you don't plan your whole day. Think I'm going to go out and fly today. You think, oh shit, the bloody pub's closed, and my girlfriend's dropped me. She thinks I'm homosexual. Oh well, I'll go fly now.
Good example.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm sure nothing disappoints our 13 to 17-year-old members than knowing the pub's closed and they have to go fly instead.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? It's more an impulsive thing. You really don't go out of your way and say, oh, I've been planning this all bloody week. Well, I'm going to fly Melbourne to Sydney, or let's see the booking system. You get online, you look up Vatpac, you say, oh, yeah, ABC is on and shit, Aiden's on. I'm not flying then. And there you go.
Yeah, I agree. If it's a major event, that's a different story. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A major event, you have to.
Yeah, but major events, it's more that's more rostering. It's not. I'm not really concerned about bookings. But like, I'll use another example. Like, I'm really appreciate your feedback as well, Nick, and Christian. But let's say Brett Vaughan's been on Alice Springs Tower for 5 hours now. Would it influence your decision to fly to Alice Springs if you knew he was going to be on 5 hours rather than 1? Because Alice Springs, as an example, wherever you fly from, minimum like 2-hour flight time at least. Wouldn't it be nice to know that if you take off from somewhere else, how long he'll be on for? Would that, and if you know he's going to be on for the flight time there, would that influence your decision to fly there, or would you still act impulsively?
No, I would act impulsively.
I would
get online. Sorry, I would get online and say, text message to the ATC, say how much are you on for another hour or 2 hours or whatever.
But it'll be something nice to see visually on a dashboard or something like that, like another reference.
Well, that's true too. I'll have to admit that's true.
I kind of disagree here. Like, I feel like it would be kind of useless. I don't think many people would use it because, like Nick said, we're very impulsive and I feel like the reason why people between the major aerodromes, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, late is because people know when there's some traffic, people will get on those positions because everyone knows those positions well. The issue with places with like Alice Springs or like Townsville is that not many people know the airports and go there. It's just that you don't have the traffic to say, I should probably jump on that position.
But then that also raises the question, if there were pilot bookings or intentions incorporated into this system, would air traffic controllers log on there? Like, I mean, if me as an air traffic controller, if I knew 4 aircraft were going to fly to Townsville and all land about that time, why wouldn't I log on somewhere that controls around Townsville? Because I'm looking for traffic. And I think, like, it used to be back in the day, and I remember we used to, I don't know how much, but Trace, did you used to use that kind of booking thing back in the day? It was used every now and then.
They used
during
smoke
milk
signals
runs
back
and
in
stuff.
the day.
Not that far back, Nick.
Basically is.
We used to chisel it into stone tablets and put them out 3 weeks beforehand so people could see them.
That's right.
But yeah, I did use it occasionally, but its popularity did drop off over time, which is why it was eventually discontinued.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Suggestion, if I may?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Now, not long ago, I logged on and controlled somewhere in the middle of Australia where there was an event, and I noticed more ATC and more pilots in the southeast. And so I think it sort of works in both ends, where it's man and they'll come. But it's not just the fact that we're controlling the events. It's a fact that there's also ATC elsewhere rather than in the event area. If you guys know, from a while ago, we had this thing called Vatpac Hit Squad. Is there any chance something like that could work, where we could consistently, during events away from the southeast corner, have all the ATC positioned like all the ATC positions manned, so that over time it becomes a sort of known thing that there will be ATC and people slowly start moving over. Because it's not an overnight fix, especially as long as people keep controlling the southeast corner when there's an event elsewhere.
We could do an Iron Mike every week.
That's a great idea, Arjun. Yeah, we did have the unofficial Vatpac hit squad for a little while. In fact, I think I'm still in the group on Facebook. But yeah, I think it does. Honestly, it comes down to, especially with an event, it's not going to happen overnight, and you need to. The only way we're going to influence people to attend an event is if we have ATC. The problem is, I think it's very hard to get controllers to commit to controlling where there isn't traffic. So that's why I'm sort of that's what I've noticed on weekends. That
Guys, sort out your mic issues, please.
Daryl.
Echo.
I was just thinking that.
Daryl, Mike.
That's what I've noticed on weekends, is that even though we may have an event, if it's a major event, it's a bit different. It's hyped up, it's weeks in advance, and they don't come around all the time. But in terms of starting a weekly event on a weekend, we can't guarantee it's going to be consistently popular. And it means we struggle to get ATC and pilots involved.
I agree with Callum here. Like, it's
User disconnected from your channel.
Mate, you're breaking up like Space Shuttle Columbia down there.
Leave the jokes to me, will ya?
User was moved to your channel.
But yeah, exactly what Callum said. We just didn't get the traffic to get the ATC.
I think that's why I thought it was Whitey. That's why I think it works better to have. Why don't we look at doing something else on the weekends? Because I feel like pilots just enjoy fly, and even when I fly, I don't necessarily want to have to fly. This is a weekend is my time off, right? I don't want to have to fly where there's an event just to get air traffic control. So if that was my idea behind having some kind of availability system, because you know where the air traffic control is going to be, and you can sort of plan. I feel like it's easier to plan around that rather than being confined to an event at a specific time.
Yeah, I agree, Callum. That's a great idea.
If I may jump in for a sec, Arjun, if I could just clarify what you were saying. We're saying if we got consistent people to staff weekly events each week, that would build the expectation that there would be ATC and then pilot numbers would follow?
That's what I personally think, yeah. Because there was a time once where, the event was where the focus was, and that's where people would go, and it actually worked really well. But now the problem is there's one, maybe two air traffic controllers where the event is, and everyone else in Southeast Australia, and there's not enough ATC to get the interest going, and there's not enough pilots for the interest of the ATC. So you're basically getting rid of the expectation of pilots by having the.
Are you going to Warzone or something, mate?
I'm playing Battlefield.
Yeah, boy.
Sorry. All right, I'll get out of it. Yeah, so you basically have a bunch of people that are willing to control with no traffic, which is basically what the hit squad is, to over time get people up and running. Because when we did have the hit squad, it actually worked quite well.
User
I thought.
joined your channel.
Would it be fair to say if we could?
I feel like it's also because something like Milk Run is known by everyone. Everyone knows you're going to find ATC between Melbourne and Sydney on a Monday. It's also because you have a lot of members who don't check the events calendar regularly and see what events are on, but they don't know the event. Everyone knows Milk Run's there and when to find ATC in that corner.
Also, can I ask another thing?
Sure.
Many, many moons ago, when I was stupid enough to fly jets, I for some
User requested
bloody
talk
stupid
power.
reason, I was in Boston and I asked for a clearance, and the guy said to me, "Refer to your now. What's the system where they give you a clearance and it comes through the computer?"
PDC.
Yeah, they have that initiated, and I went, "What the hell are you talking about?" I was totally lost, and they say, "Well, the guy who was there was very nice, and he sort of
User joined your channel.
held me hand through the system." Do we have anything in plans or in the pipe work for that system coming online for us?
We don't have an operations delegate here.
There is stuff in the controller pack for it. I think there's an alias for it, and with the Hoppies CPLC, there's stuff for it.
We do use it now during events, major events, but
well, the reason I ask is that back in the day when I was controlling, you had Lee Wang Hung Lo. He used to come online. He couldn't speak English. You give him a clearance, he said, "What the hell does that mean?" And in other words, if he had it all written down for him, he could basically know what the SID was and take it from there. You didn't have to hold his hand. So I think that's a major benefit.
I mean, that system's got pretty minor of a difference to just text chat, really.
Yeah, it's ultimately, well, maybe a bit of education on, we do have in the controller client an alias file, which is updated by the operations department. I'm sure Owen can tell you more about it than I can, but the file is there, and I think maybe if we provide some education and a tutorial on how to use it, is there something out there, Owen?
Yeah, it's actually included with all the downloads. If you go to Documents, Euroscope, and then Docs, it's in there. There's a whole guide to all the aliases and how you actually use it.
Where is it, sorry?
How they work. It's in the Vatpac folder in Euroscope.
Data documents. I
Yeah, data documents, that's it.
There you go. Even the director doesn't even know where it is.
Right, here we go. Yeah, no, see, I didn't know about this. There we go. So we can pop that on the where the download is. Just letting people know that it's there.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that that's probably a way. Like I said, Boston, all that area online, they directed me to this area, and I thought, gee, that's a bloody whiz-bang system. I didn't mind that way. Because as you realise, in America, their SIDs are bloody quite lengthy and quite detailed, and you think, how the bloody hell am I going to read all that back and understand and read it all?
Well, there's also sort of from a training perspective, none of our controllers, PDC isn't something, to my knowledge, Dan. It's not something that is in our standard courses.
Negative. It's covered in the senior controller course, however.
Okay, so PDC is not a standard thing that we have in Vatpac Airspace. I mean, we activate it during events, especially during World Flight. It's used heavily, purely to so that we don't have so much frequency congestion with clearance delivery. And the airspace has never really warranted using PDC because it's not. It's really its primary role is to reduce frequency congestion when it's so busy. But what you're proposing is to use it for pilots who it is like the format that it gets sent in. It is easier for a pilot to understand that may be new, but there's not much difference between writing that out in text and doing a PDC. The difference is though, if you do look at the alias guide document in that path that Jacob posted in the Teamspeak, that actually has got commands inside Euroscope that as a controller we can enter those commands and we just fill in the blanks. So it does a lot of the work for us.
Well, what about, for example, milk run? That would be warranted in the milk run.
Well, this is something that I think would have to be discussed with operations because it's, while there's nothing, it isn't trained. We don't train in the use of PDC. So it's a question of whether operations would warrant the use of it on a standard basis, you know, whether they want to do it on a standard basis, and if so, then we'd have to provide some sort of training in our courses so that people understand how to use it.
The truth is that the whole CPDLC and PDC thing, you can turn it on whenever you like. If you're on delivery, if you're on center and it's completely quiet, there's nothing that's really stopping you from actually turning it on, because it's not actually regulated by VATSIM. It's a separate network that just is used by everyone. So like, there's nothing stopping me from actually turning it on my client right now and letting people log on whenever they wish.
Forgive me if I'm mistaken, isn't how we do PDCs on VATSIM exactly the same as just typing it into the text anyway?
Yeah, well, this is the point that we're trying to bring up. I think, like, because, Owen, what you're saying is assuming a pilot's using Hoppy's CPD or CDP or C or whatever it is. Like, not actually that many people use it, but in America and in other countries, there's also a lot in Asia, that they just private message you a PDC when they see you log on to the grounds.
We have that in the alias.
Yeah, but then
.pdc.
Yeah, so that's there is that command available, but there isn't any training on the conditions that we need to do PDC.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we can take this further for a discussion at a board level during a further meeting, taking on board everything everyone said regarding the whole PDC. But just a final thing, because I really only heard from 2 or 3 people, and you can just message in the chat, you know, whether you think it's good, whether you think it's something that would be interesting to you or not worth investigating, is whether you think we should have some form of availability system for air traffic controllers and or pilots available on the Vatpac site, where people can enter their availability, and you know whether it's worth looking into. Will it influence you and where you fly on the network or control?
Yeah, I support that idea. I really like that.
May I add on to that, Callum?
User joined your channel.
Just back to PDCs for 1 second. A lot of pilots don't know how to do it.
All right,
Tristan, you should probably not worry about talking.
I think you should stop asking questions. Your internet's not working, mate.
Oh.
Message your question.
Dodo internet's just not working tonight, is it?
Does it ever?
At least that internet flies.
Well, I think on the idea there, Callum, with the people's arrangements and all that, not necessarily say, okay, yeah, I'm able to get on now until then. Just even like just putting it out there, I'm going to be at Brisbane Tower for 4 hours on Saturday. Not necessarily saying I will definitely be there, but just putting it out there, sort of an interest hunter sort of thing.
Yeah, like I don't think it's reasonable to expect that people will necessarily be able to predict where they are exactly and for how long they'll be there, with everyone's busy lives and everything. But at least having that idea and putting it out there, and you know, if somebody ends up flying, they don't get ATC. Look, it's a shame, but it's that intention that counts, and for when it does occur, that I'd really like to, you know, and like as Jaden said in the chat, it wouldn't make a difference on weekends, and that's fine. But even on weekdays, like we'd encourage the use of it pretty much all the time. Like if it's something that the membership believes it's worth looking into.
Like I personally agree. I mean, I I've seen a huge number of increase in ATC recently, and that's excellent. From ground tower to approach, even to center.
Thank you.
And I think that's a great idea, Owen. I think it's something to start evaluating. We have to start somewhere, and I personally think that's a great idea. Apart from the booking system, which, as you know, it's a touch and go.
From memory, last time we had a booking system, it's turned into a ATC reservation system. Could we try and avoid that again?
This is what I'm saying. It's more of an intention. It's not going to be a booking system because I 100% agree. And people were hostile over, I booked a position for Milk Run, get off. No, it's not going to be a booking system. It's purely going to be an availability system where you can put up your intended availability. It doesn't mean anything. You don't gain hopefully, the only thing that you'll gain from it is having more traffic in your airspace, and as a pilot, getting air traffic control. That's ultimately what we want to gain, and it's I would expect it to be especially appealing to our controllers that aren't C1s, because being a C1, can control a bigger area, and that doesn't really affect you. You can sort of extend to get more pilots. As an S2, or even if you want to log on to a Class D tower, a procedural tower, or you want to log on as an approach somewhere, for me, like if I see Sydney approach logged on and I go, it'd be great to fly out of there to get it, but if I want to fly into Sydney, I don't know how long I'm going to have until they log off, so is it worth doing? Whereas if I actually knew how long until, or if they submitted their availability and I knew how long they were going to be online for, it'd encourage me personally more to fly there, because then I could fly in and out of Sydney with that coverage.
5th time lucky, Daryl. No go.
Yeah, I agree. I think there also should be some sort of minimum availability time when a controller logs online. Like I saw Snowy Center log online for about 15, 17 minutes, and for some unfortunate reason he or she had to log off. But it would be nice to have some sort of consistent time frame.
It is dictated in the VATSIM code of conduct. So.
Sure. Okay.
There is a time, and it's dictated in the code of conduct, I'm pretty sure, or it might be an expectation.
It's an expectation, I think.
I think it's an expectation, yeah, but it's not really something that we can enforce as a division. But again, like I think if somebody had sort of a booking in place, it'd be, or not a availability listing in place. At least we'd know that they're going to be online for more than 15, kind of thing.
And can I also propose to the board that if you talk like this, you're banned from Vatpac?
I agree. Nick, you cracked me up.
Well, Nick, you're not a controller anymore, so how does it affect you?
I'm not here to whatever affects me, because of the nature of the good-hearted person I am. I'm here for the betterment of Vatpac.
Aren't you due back at your picket line, Nick?
You what?
Aren't you due back at your picket line?
You got a TV show to watch?
It's coming up soon. Another 2 hours.
Guys, sorry to throw this spanner in the works, but on a more serious note, is there a system in place where we can provide the greatest assistance to the pilot if the pilot is not cooperating with ATC?
I'm not sure what the question is there.
What do you mean?
There is no question. It's just a statement. We did that tonight. I had a guy just do 3 orbits of Melbourne because he couldn't work out how to catch the ILS, and I helped him on the final visually, and I got him on the deck. And I said, we're here to help you to him.
Good on you, Daryl.
User joined your channel.
That's a prime example of a good controller. Because I think, and I'm just speaking in general trends over the last, over the last few years, we've had, a few controller complaints submitted about a few different people, and it's.
Thank you.
It's nothing.
It's just on the increase. That's what I've observed.
It is, and I think it's, and I've said this for a while now, but something that I've observed is that it starts with the mentality on TeamSpeak, which, to be fair, over the last, I'm going to say 12 months has gotten significantly better. But if people come online, air traffic controllers, they get their S2, and they log on for the first time and they start controlling, and all of a sudden they feel they're qualified to start telling a pilot or talking about a pilot behind his back, saying he's rubbish, and I think it's something that everybody's observed. It's fair enough. I think we've all done it at some point. I'm not going to deny doing it because, I've definitely done it back in the day. I don't do it as much anymore, but I think one big issue that I have is people are complaining and stopping to spend the time to complain about a pilot and their abilities, but they're not actually willing to help them so that they know for the future. And the number one reason, and it leads to hostility not only on the TeamSpeak, but it also leads to a bit of hostility on the network and people these days, as I'm sure Nick can say, you can't just message people these days nicely with good intentions and say, hey, you're doing this wrong. I think it is more difficult these days than it used to be because everybody's all, I know I'm right. You don't need to tell me how to do things. I know what I'm talking about. I think VATSIM is a constant learning experience, and there's a lot of people on the network that have learnt all they want to learn, and we can't do much about that. But we as air traffic controllers, I look at it as if we were an organisation, the pilots would be the clients, or in fact a school. The pilots would be the students, the teachers would be the air traffic controllers, and then everyone above that is like a headmaster. We've really got to actually look after the pilots as air traffic controllers, as much as it's not necessarily our responsibility and it might take away from our enjoyment a bit. If somebody doesn't know how to do something and all we do is sit back and bitch about them on TeamSpeak, how are they going to get any better? And it happens way too much. It's started declining, the amount that it does happen, but we need to be educating people rather than thinking about ourselves and just bitching.
Callum, can I just say that's a pretty easy fix because when I control, I don't log on to TeamSpeak. I don't utilize that connection system simply because of what you've been talking about, that you hear too much gossip, too much talking about pilots, and I'm not interested in that. I'm already too busy controlling pilots, and that's all I want to do is just have that bit of enjoyment of controlling the air traffic control environment that I've assigned to, be it Tasmania or extending to PNG. And then cover that area and get the pilots on the ground or in the air or whatever they want to do. But I'm definitely not chatting about them on TeamSpeak. So I think that's more a TeamSpeak issue than a Vatpac issue. If you agree with that.
Yeah, definitely think that. I think realistically, and it's not all. I'm not saying it's the controller's job completely to teach somebody how to fly a plane. That's not your job. But if we have resources that you can provide to the pilots, then we should be doing it. And I talked to Nick about this the other day and somebody else, and I said, well, if, let's just, hypothetical, if Vatpac was to put together a few more tutorials or resources and maybe like a pilot assist, where you can send pilots to. It's all about education. I'm not asking you to educate. I'm just asking you to show them the way.
We have that, Callum. We have that. We're developing it right now. If you want to talk to Cam Tyson, you're going to get all the information you want.
Yeah, but that's more the pilot academy that's being developed by Vados. It's more. I don't see it that way. That's more of a advanced concept learning. We just want to teach them basic things so that they can get to A to B, because a P2 is more advanced than you need to get from A to B, and a P1 doesn't tell you enough. And I feel like it's stuff that you can learn through tutorials, through YouTube videos. And I think if we have the resources that we can direct people, and yeah, Zongi, I know there is tutorials out there, and definitely we should be sending this kind of stuff to people so they get an idea. I mean, they need a bit of a brush up, but if we have the resources to send to people, and we do, there's resources there, charts, they should be in your controller information or easily accessible, all that kind of stuff. If we have resources where we can send people to, then we're not having to teach them, we're just showing them the way.
All right, if I can jump in here, someone that's in the room who didn't realise that the town hall aspect of this chat ended some time ago has sent me an anonymous question, so I'll throw this out there. This one's probably for you, Dan. Can we confirm VFR aircraft are allowed to plan via an IFR fix?
Yes.
Good,
Who said that?
Popo. I'm not saying it was sent anonymously.
No, not you.
Oh, Zongi.
I said yes.
A VFR aircraft can travel via an IFR fix if he wants, but is he able to ascertain that he has passed that fix? That's the trick.
Good point.
If he can't ascertain that he's passed that fix, then he can't nominate it as a fix. Remember, it's not an overhead. You're not flying overhead an aid. You're passing through a fictional point in time and space. So if he can't ascertain that through the navigation equipment, then no, he can't fly planet that way.
Sorry, Trace, that was me. I had a mouthful of food and I didn't realise that we'd finished that. But my belief on it was that, okay, an aircraft's fitted with GPS. If the GPS has the fixes installed on that GPS, why can't we fly VFR through them?
Of course
you can.
Of course you can. As long as you can set a Latin long based on that fix, then you can use it.
Remember that you can actually use your GPS as a reference for navigation to satisfy your positive fixes, even as a VFR aircraft. So you can go fly over more than scattered cloud VFR, as long as you are VMC, obviously, and you meet the position fixing requirements. So if you don't have a GPS, well, then you need a visual positive fix every half an hour. Otherwise, you can basically use a GPS or a nav aid to satisfy that requirement every 2 hours.
Visualize a positive fix every 30 minutes. It used to be every 2 hours. Really? You've only got to go 30 minutes and you have to re-identify the ground?
2 hours is if you're using a nav aid. You can't have any more than 2 hours between a VOR or whatever. But if it's visual, if you're solely visual, you need a positive fix every half an hour.
Right. So he can use it as long as he can use it as long as he flies by it. If he doesn't, then he can't. And as long as he maintains the 30 minutes via a visual and 2 hours via an aid.
Thank you for answering the question.
Since we've got a lot more members than when we finished the town hall aspect of the meeting now, does anyone have any other questions? You can either shoot them through to Tracy if you want them anonymously answered, or you can give us a shot.
If no one else has, do we have visibility to international like using VRoute, you can see VATSIM events. Do we have international visibility to that?
Sounds like a Callum question.
What?
Like
what for?
International visibility for VATSIM events. Like if I was to go on switching the VATSIM calendar, I would like to know what happens on Monday night in Australia, and I can't see nothing on the VATSIM international calendar. Is there anything that we can? Sorry, go ahead.
We currently don't publish our regular scheduled events on that. I mean, we can definitely publish it on there every Monday. It's not an issue. Like, it's something that we can do. But typically we only publish our major events on the VATSIM calendar.
I think what Christian's saying is that New Zealand tends to do their Saturday, their SN ops of Saturday on VATSIM, whereas Vatpac isn't being advertised there.
Joined your channel.
Forgive me if I'm asking, but is there any reason why we don't publish that?
Not particularly. I mean, department workload would be the only thing that I could think of. But if I can definitely start publishing events, like all events there, including our regular events.
I'm hoping maybe we can get more traffic. That's all. That's another side.
Yeah, but Christian, you've got to look at the time.
Very true. That is very true.
So we advertise, and VATSIM is majoritively American and European, and both of those times do not fit our Monday night milk run. You might get 2-3 people that are getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to do our milk run. That's all.
I've got a question for you, Callum.
Oh, here we go. Go ahead.
Now, there have been a number of aborted efforts over the years to try and set up a series of events revolving around our Metropolitan Class D aerodromes.
Yep.
Aborted mostly because the people that tried to set them up didn't have the time to keep them going. Does Vatpac have any plans to look into these kinds of events?
As a regular kind of event?
Yeah, because I know that when they have been run, they've been generally received fairly well, I think.
Look, absolutely. We're planning an event now, which involves Class D aerodromes as a major event. However, like a more regular event, definitely. I think the biggest struggle that we would have would be air traffic control participation from members, because I think the biggest issue is a lot of people that would love to fly in these events are also the ones who would control, and nobody wants to singularly control this event when they'd rather be flying. Like, it's definitely something that I'd like to bring back. Definitely something that we can look into, and we can try doing on a fortnightly basis if that works for everyone, or we can go back to monthly like it was.
On the point about air traffic control, one possibility you could do is which we did on occasion back in the day of whether it was GA Madness or Regionals and Twins, was that we asked for volunteers up front. So it wasn't the case of waiting until the evening, seeing if anyone was available. It could be that even a few people wanted to control, and obviously if there's 3 people that wanted to control, 2 of them are probably going to miss out. So even asking up front, who's interested in putting their hand up for this week.
Okay. I mean, that's the only thing you and I have agreed on all week.
I'm sure we agree on occasion, Nick.
No, sorry, this year. The first thing we've agreed on this year, actually.
Fair enough.
You're disconnected from your channel.
So we're talking about major events fortnightly or monthly?
No, that was a great idea by Zongi just then. Excellent.
A regular event which involves Class D airports or regionals and twins.
Well, that just goes back. That just goes back to regionals and twins, which we've had before.
Yeah. We can either initially start it on a. Well, I'm happy to look into it. We can either start it on a fortnightly basis or a monthly basis, like it was. I'm happy to start with a monthly basis. If it's busy enough, then we can bring it forward to every fortnight.
Look, Callum, I certainly didn't mean to put you on the spot to give an answer necessarily straight.
It's a great idea. Like, it is something that I want to do.
But an idea for you guys to know that the details.
I think having minor events often and major events less often is a great way to go. I don't know. Is there a reason why a major event Callum, isn't monthly and is quarterly? Is it because it's very hard to do it on the computer, to set it up, the website, and to get the ATC?
Good question. In an ideal world, I would like to do one regularly. I mean, I went in with a plan to do like a panic stations every 3 months, and then stuff every in between. But yeah, purely it really comes down to workload. I think there is a lot of work that goes into events in advertising, and along with our real world commitments, it does become quite time consuming to construct a major event with all the parties involved. But if that's something that people do want to see, we'll make it happen. At the end of the day, our plan is at the moment that we will have events ready to go. We're working on it slowly, but we're working on having events that are already done, ready to go in advance, so that we don't have to worry about doing everything last minute, which is sort of what we've been doing at the moment with our major events.
Beautiful. Could I just put it forward, Callum, that maybe the panel that's working on this aims for a 2-month window. Maybe that would not exceed the overload of the requirements to build the website, the advertisement, and also the ATC that want to do it. And then every 8 weeks, so we'd have 6 events a year. Would be wonderful to keep the enthusiasm in the group, because I know that the big events definitely draw the guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we'll try our best. I'm looking at bringing some more people on board to assist the team, and hopefully that is the case, and you do begin to see that more regular major events roll out in the future.
Beautiful. Callum, can you get the whoever the powers that be that work on the website to just please advertise for applicants? And I have a young son that's doing an IT degree, and he would love to practice this sort of stuff. And there are always going to be people here that are going to want to help out. So please get it advertised, and let's see who we can get to help you.
Well, in terms of events, pretty much I'm always open to anybody who sends me an email interested in becoming an event coordinator. It's been on the forums for a while, but it's not just an application, it's more of an expression of interest. If you are interested, the way I would look at it is it's an entry-level position into a staff position at Vatpac. So there is room for further progression once you're on board, and it's open to anybody that's interested to help.
My aim is to become a mentor.
Callum, would you agree that anyone, particularly in here, who is interested in helping out in any way, should get in touch?
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Just with our regionals and twins that we were talking about, would people prefer to see that kind of thing on a weekday or a weekend?
Weekend.
Yeah. Well, how's the Saturday? It's a no going. Is that working or not?
No. There is not currently an event on Saturday.
Yeah. So maybe it would everyone want the regionals and twins on Saturday? I don't know.
Sunday night.
I was thinking
Sunday. Could you put up a vote thing on the website?
Yeah, I think a vote thing would work out. Vote thing.
There you go. Majority rule.
All right.
Thanks,
I'll pop something up on the forums and the Facebook to get some feedback regarding that. And yeah, as always, you don't have to come on board the events team to suggest any events or anything like that. If you have any suggestions on what we could do better, you don't need to wait for a town hall meeting like this. Click me an email, events@vatpac.org, and you know, we're always open to feedback, always open to ideas, because at the end of the day, our members are the ones that are going to be participating in these events. So we don't want to make everything up.
Does the event have to be centered around Australia?
It doesn't. No.
It tends to gain more attendance.
As long
if
as
it
it's
is.
in Vatpac airspace.
Yeah, as long as it's in the Vatpac airspace, basically.
Yeah. Hey,
You can
Cal,
have-
but sorry. By the way, the propensity for an air traffic controller to jump online, I was listening to earlier. Just to let you know, my little 2 cents, I couldn't get my microphone working, was that I jumped on this afternoon. I opened up my VatSpy. I saw there was 5-6 planes departing out of Sydney for Melbourne. There was no one else around. There was no ATC anywhere. I jumped on and provided Wollongong. I ended up staying for, I don't know how long, 3 or 4 hours. And it was simply spasmodic. It was because I saw what I saw and I jumped on to help. Once the traffic had alleviated down to about 2 or 3 aircraft, I jumped offline. So I just want to let you know, my feeling is that I'm very opportunistic with traffic. I would not book. If I'm going to jump on, I'll fly. But if I see traffic that needs help, I'll jump on.
They say that you do the same with your women.
Boom, boom.
Damn.
True comic.
I think every controller here would do the same thing, sir.
Yeah,
so that's a great
yeah.
attitude. That's a fantastic attitude.
Daryl, don't slam.
It's always been Daryl's problem, his positive attitude.
Me though, I will on approach.
Oh, Tristan, give it up, mate.
Yeah, give it up, mate.
Does anyone else have any questions apart
Of
from
course,
Tristan?
once I logged on, I did regret it.
Question time, anyone?
Are we
anyone?
interested? You know, I realise there's a VATOSH, but are we interested in teaching people?
Cam? Sorry, what? Who? We win?
Are we interested in teaching people, i.e., don't worry about the P1, P2, because I've got my own personal views about that, but actually teaching people basics?
What kind of basics?
Well, I had the good fortune of talking to someone this afternoon, and he flies jets a lot, and he had trouble understanding basic navigation, VOR, and all that.
Why don't you start a romper room for him, Nick?
You want to become our newbie night coordinator, Nick?
That was going to be my
When
next
you say he flies, when you say he flies jets, I hope you're not talking about it in real life.
Yeah, in real life.
Well, the thing is, definitely in VetNZ, we've run in the past, like IFR training nights. That's been solely the job of the events department. So, like, you know, it's that we got like 15 or so guys from all over the globe. So, you know, it's a good time. So I'm sure if you emailed Callum about that idea about having like an IFR training night, and if you wanted to run it alongside with Vatosh, I mean, be more than happy.
Okay.
Yeah, on that, guys, www.vatosh.net/training P1, turn those PRs into a P. If you want to get those P1s turned into a P2, you see there.
You can leave the advertising.
Hold on. Can we just acknowledge that we let you in here purely by choice after no Australian member was invited to the VatNZ Town Hall meeting? We invited you in here and you are betraying our trust. This is unacceptable.
Callum, I thought Vatpac was a member of VATOS.
User joined your channel.
I don't care. He's a VatNZ member. That's all that matters.
Nick,
don't take
if
it
you
out
want
on me.
some...
I'm not a director at VatNZ. Thank you. If you have any complaints, send it to Andrew at vatnz.net.
Nick, if you want some IFR training, I'll give you 5 minutes in the air and you won't know your butt from your mouth, mate.
Well, I know me mouth. Don't know me about me buck.
From a training perspective, if somebody does want to organise something like that, you're more than welcome to. It doesn't have to be something that events does. Like if you want to organise a night, just hit me up. If you want to run it, hit me up. I'll put it all in the calendar. I'll put it up for you. And give you assistance if you need it. But
User
yeah,
disconnected
if you want
channel.
to, feel free. But I don't think at this point we will necessarily give time to it.
Gentlemen, and I personally believe that this is my personal opinion.
Harrison.
The girlfriend's walked in.
User in your channel was kicked from the server.
Well played.
User disconnected from your channel.
See you, chaps.
User joined your channel.
All right. I think, Nick, that's a fantastic idea. That's a great idea. I'm all hands up for that. However, I personally feel that if I was personally to do that sort of training environment, I would just take that offline. Absolutely. But if Vatpac has some kind member that is willing to extend that kind and personal time, then I'm up. Absolutely, I'm up all for that.
Kind member, you're in the wrong division, mate.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think you're
this is an issue.
confusing the
This is an
P2.
issue. This
You're
is an
confusing
issue.
the P2 with an ATC environment. ATC aren't pilot trainers. End of story. The job of Vatpac is virtual air traffic. It's not virtual air training. So we have to segregate the two.
I understand.
You cannot have the same.
I completely understand.
I'm happy to go. Yeah, Christian, you know I am. I'm happy to help guys if they can't work it, if they're doing this on the VOR, or if they're right turn or left turn or whatever. But we are not a pilot training organisation. For that, you've got to go to VADOS.
Oh, I completely agree with you, and there's no argument here. Absolutely, I'm just saying, note on the board. Let's say if we say report 12 DME, and the pilot says, "What's a DME?" What do we do?
Well, we're always going to respond in the affirmative. Yeah, as an air traffic controller, we're always going to help a pilot. So, in real life, I flew from Bundaberg to Lady Elliot one day in the Twin on a single pilot, and while I was en route, a guy took out a young Asian guy, took off from, I think it was Maryborough or somewhere around the East Coast there. And well, my wife's Japanese, I'm not racist. So he took off and then he reported lost, and he was actually over water. He was over water and couldn't find Australia, and he'd only taken off from Maryborough. And the ATC helped him with his compass and his heading and got him back. So we're always going to do that, but we're not a training organisation. So it's the segregation between the two. That's all, Christian. You know that.
Oh, absolutely, and I have no argument, and that's absolutely. I 100% agree with you, and I think we should take this offline as a personal pilot. If you need to learn how to fly, take it offline. If you need to ask any help, ask any of our members. We're more than happy to help. That's my point.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because there are other pilots that you're trying to control, and you want to give everyone the best information and ATC that you can.
Absolutely.
You were kicked from the server. Connected.
A lot of recognition. Of course, Tracy running the head. And of course Callum and the other people that you don't hear so much about. I just want to say here to them. Well done.
It's been done, Daryl.
Cheers, Daryl.
Thanks, John.
But thank you anyway.
Yeah, well, that
It
was
is
when
appreciated.
I was controlling while you guys were doing that. Then
Tracy's head's big enough anyhow.
I wouldn't call it controlling.
And Gracie, I just wanted to, and everyone else, I just wanted to personally just say thank you very much for bringing some fantastic mentors online, and Ryan as well, everyone else on board that came on. So that's just, yeah.
They're missing the best.
They're missing the, but I'm sure they'll be hearing this offline, and yeah, it's thank you. It's a tremendous privilege to serve under them, and to be taught under them, as well as to have Vatpac provide this amazing service. So I'm indebted. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
And I'd also just like to say thank you for Tracy for unofficially letting me extend to Malaysia. Thank you, Tracy.
I'd love to say a one-liner there, but it's highly inappropriate, so I won't. I'll just leave it with your imagination.
User in your channel timed out.
Any more questions? I'm sure Mr. Martin, head of ATC training, is looking for wants to answer some questions.
I had one earlier that somebody sent in anonymously to me, but he's not in the channel anymore. It was, will helicopter operations and stuff ever be included into the S2 course, or be thoroughly more expanded on? Probably, but there's not a lot of information when it comes to that stuff. And right on cue, Richard joins the channel.
Here we go. You're only the meeting actually finished an hour and 3 minutes ago, Quigs.
News of your untimely demise have obviously been inaccurate.
Yeah, who the
Sorry,
hell was
just
covering
could
the
not
East
be
Coast,
avoided.
Callum?
You were controlling this whole time.
I controlled for 3
No, I'm
hours
sorry,
during
I
the
wasn't
bloody
even
presentation.
wasn't even close to the computer.
Go for it, Richard. You're up.
What do you want?
Something about helicopters and S2.
Wasn't Dan answering that?
Helicopters in S2. I can't fly one in S1.
Oh, that's another topic which I'm not sure we have time for, but I think maybe something in the mentoring session or some training material we should cover more helicopter material.
Oh yes, please. Yes, that's Daniel Martin's material.
See, the problem with doing that is that not many people do chopper operations, so having that sort of training material, balancing whether it's actually going to be effective and how useful it's going to be, is something that needs to be brought up.
A lot of effort for minimal result.
Yeah.
We also learn about non-precision approaches, and we don't necessarily use those a whole lot, given that there's ILS on all runways at Sydney and on 2 of the 3 prominent runways at Melbourne.
Look, in the event that Compass 821 logs on as a helicopter, I think we should be prepared.
Yeah, with regards
and the reality is it's not difficult.
With regards, David, to the ILS, honestly, I flew 20 years commercially, and I did less than 5 ILSs in 20 years. So the fact that we fly ILS to ILS here is very unrealistic in real aviation.
Well, in an actual plane, it is standard. So.
Well, see now, Daryl, we've got rid of all the NDBs, so we can't do any more NDB approaches, unfortunately. So we've got to kind of.
What's the alternative?
Australia has, but the rest of the world hasn't.
Yeah, but the
Daryl,
question
did you
was
actually
about,
fly
the question
anywhere
was
that could
about
afford
air
an
traffic
ILS?
control. We're talking about ATC training for Vatpac.
Actually, that's true. I did not fly anywhere that could afford an ILS, and that's
what
true.
I thought.
So you're saying VORs is coming into the picture?
In the Solomons, I couldn't even fly at night because they couldn't afford runway lighting. That's the truth. So I got no night hours in the Solomons.
Have we talked at all about pilot training, Callum?
Why are you asking me?
Direct after
Because you and I
Cam Tyson.
discussed it the other night, that's why.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a discussion about air traffic controllers bitching about pilots.
Not the same thing.
Well,
how they have no training.
Yes, that.
I guess the bigger picture is we're confronted with an aircraft, regardless of IFR or VFR. If the pilot has no understanding, then it's just a matter of how we deal with it in the best professional manner.
I mean, there's an amazing disparity here in aviation of flying on line on VATSIM. You guys, got to recognise that, and you know it. I mean, here you've got a single pilot operation on a Jetstar A320, and the guy's never flown a plane in his life, and he's single pilot on an A320, where I got mates who are first officers on an A320 that would struggle to fly at single pilot. So, the disparity is huge, and we just have to deal with that and try and help them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Apparently,
Can I
Jeff
think-
Torres returning
So
easy to
how do we
fly.
try and help them?
I personally
Well, we
feel
do
that-
try and help them. We do
Oh.
try and help them because Cam Tyson is working very hard to create a pilot training system that is now P1 and P2 approved, and that's been going on for almost a year now that he's been trying to get that through.
Yeah, and how do we
So
get
you've got to
pilots that need it
recognise
into it?
Can
it's
can,
got,
can
it's
we?
got to be recognised.
Can
The
we
effort's
market
got to be
this?
recognised.
Yeah, as I say, can we market this? Can we get it out there to
User
pilots?
joined your channel.
What's the best way of doing this?
User disconnected
Well,
from your channel.
to be honest, if I had it my way, I'd put in my AEDT line, like when I control, please check out the website. But according to both VetNZ and Vatpac policies, you can't do that. AEDT policies. So
I just want to put out there's nothing stopping a pilot going from to any of the training organisations which currently exist on the network, any of the ATOs. Just because Vatos now has one doesn't mean that there never was any, and there was nothing stopping a pilot going from any of the other ones. So why all of a sudden do we have to necessarily say, well, we've got a resource, we should be using it? Like, there's always been a resource. Pilots have always had the option to go somewhere. So I don't necessarily think VATS in pilot training is necessarily the answer.
Callum, I'm gonna disagree with you there because I was involved with Don Collins for a year. We tried to get it going, and we could not get any support anywhere, and the thing failed, and we both threw our hands up. So if you go to the Vatpac website right now, okay, I know that it's virtual air traffic is its insignia, but if you go to the Vatpac website right now, where does it have a connection to VATOS?
It's all about situational awareness.
There's a button there that sends you to Vatos pilot training.
Who's that?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to say that we'll put a banner on the homepage, on the rolling banner. Like, obviously we'll discuss it as a board. We're all here, so
From your channel.
if it's if it's something that we're all happy to do, yeah, there's nothing stopping us from putting a banner saying the VATS in Oceania Pilot Training Academy is now open, and when you click on it, it takes you there. Like, but as I said before, I think with a lot of people who don't necessarily want to go through the training, I think we have to have something else available, like the tutorials. If we can find some more YouTube videos that we can link to, that would be great as well, because it's not a P1 is not going to teach you necessarily how to fly on a milk run Monday for the first time, but a P2 is more than you need to know, and it's not necessarily going to teach you how to fly a plane. And most of the issues we have is people don't know how to use an FMC or how to fly a plane. So if we can get videos, for example, like Trent's videos, because I learned how to fly the Dash 8 from Trent, if we can get those kinds of videos and resources and stick them on the website under pilots and under tutorials, if we can have a bit more information there, send people there, and then if they do want to, we'll advertise that we do have the academy. But I think people actually have to want to learn more advanced concepts to be sent to the academy, because a P2 is more advanced than you need to know just to fly every day on the network.
Did you learn from Trent how to put the oxygen mask on correctly?
I knew you wouldn't resist. I knew it.
No, sweetheart, Qantas taught me how to do that. So.
No, in all fairness, I think Trent and everyone else who streams does an amazing job. So yeah, heads up, and thank you very, very much for your amazing, kind, and amazing knowledge that you share with us. This is absolutely phenomenal. So thank you for everyone, especially Trent. Thank you.
So
on that.
Does anyone else want to play a drinking game where you have a shot every time Christian says thank you?
No, there's literally no excuse. There's a huge amount of
I'm not doing that again, Whitey. I played a drinking game every time he said sorry once, and I don't remember anything that happened that night.
No, well, there's a huge amount of knowledge out there, huge amount of availability out there for us to learn. There's no excuse to learn
how to fly and how to communicate. It's just about helping each other out, I guess.
Just on
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
like with the Vetosh website for the pilot training, I think what you guys have discussed is like some amazing stuff. Like just there, like if you want to fill up the Vetosh with courses, like basic courses on, like whatever you guys discussed, like how to fly a milk run, how to set up an FMC, and just have that not as a P course, but just as some like general, like like it's like learning like work experience. I don't know I don't know, but like
As a
10:30 at
course.
night. Yeah, like
Introduction.
that's the word. Yeah, an introduction how-to course, of like basic things that you should know on the network. And you want to fill that and chuck that on the Vetosh website, by all means, just let me know. Like, I'm more than happy to fill that website with whatever crap we need to put on it.
That's what I mean. A P1 course is going to tell people the
It's going to
stupid
tell
shit.
them how to turn
It's
an
gonna
A on,
it's
pretty
gonna
much.
give it. Well, this is why the P1 course, and everybody said this for a long time, but the P1 course should be mandatory when you join VATSIM, purely because I think it's all common sense, and it's not hard. You wouldn't even need to study the course. It's all common sense. But and then the P2 is quite advanced, which is why I say that there's a need for like tutorials in between, because we used to have the Pilot Assist, and you used to be able to export a flight plan from Pilot Assist and stick it into your flight sim files, and you could load it on the default flight simulator GPS. So when somebody came on their default 737, they might not have been able to take a SID or a star, but at least they could follow the correct route along the flight path that they were going.
Like, you still can do that. You just need to know how to do it properly.
Well,
you just go to SimBrief, download it. Simple.
What? No.
Yeah,
but people are stupid.
Well, now you go like to stuff like SimBrief. Yeah. But like, that's what I mean. Unless there's videos and resources pointing them there, they're not necessarily going to know.
All right. See you later, guys.
Oh,
See ya.
bedtime.
See ya.
Night, night.
See ya, Nick.
I played a drinking game once, and I ended up waking up in the morning with Tracy.
Married at First Sight must be on.
With a smile on your face too.
Pretty sure it is.
See us. Have fun.
User joined your channel. User joined your channel. User disconnected from your channel.
Clearly, Nick was the one keeping the conversation going.
Yeah, so I was going to say, what happened? I just came back from the bathroom. What? So ATC rule and the pilots suck? What's the go?
Yeah, that's the general consensus here.
That was the end and closure.
Yep.
Now, extending to Singapore. I'd like to talk about it.
Oh yeah, can we have that in the C-Run material about extending to Singapore?
We'll get that in the middle.
Daniel Martin extending all of the oceanic positions from McMurdo radio.
Oh,
Beautiful.
why do you use me as an example?
Because pilot, you're head of ATC, bro. Let's email Ray Lang and sort that out.
Oh, right.
Support at last.
G'day, Daryl.
All right, so
G'day, Ross.
Oh, who let Thompson in?
Cam?
What's
Ross.
this? We got another Kiwi now. Far out.
Ross, about that arrival.
Sorry, mate.
About that arrival.
Channel timed out. User was moved out of your channel.
Alright, does anyone have any other questions before we officially conclude?
So, before we everyone started thanking every Tom, Dick and Harry on here, what was the talk about the helicopter stuff?
They're scary.
About the training?
It's Daniel's official response was probably. It will probably be included in the future. Something just for your information as well, something that we're working on with the courses at the moment as well, is obviously updating a lot of the phraseology. So we had the whole phraseology change with climb via the SID, descend via the star. We're starting to update that, and when we do, we'll release an official NOTAM or something that just details the changes, so that current controllers can make themselves aware of the changes. Because it's not really, I think there's been bits and pieces posted around, but everybody's sort of doing something different, so we're almost there with standardizing it.
So that's another thing. Is it standardized now? Do we have to say climb via the SID, descend via the star, and all that?
Quicks?
Well, I put out that condensation of the Air Services Australia phraseology guide and directions from Air Services Australia MATS, and with the deletions for services that don't occur on VET. So that's as close to real life as you're going to get.
So is that yes or no?
Have we officiated it at Vatpac, I guess is the question, Quick?
It hasn't been asked by an official board meeting, no.
Cool. So that's pretty much the only thing that we're waiting on. It has to be added in. Sorry, it'll have to be added into MATS or amended in MATS in our training resources, and I think it was because a lot of departments had to work together. It's taken a bit, but it's something that's being worked on.
No, the proposal is there, and it's available for controllers who wish to use it, and there's been no objection to it, as in my experience in using it. So I fully expect it to be endorsed by the board at the next meeting.
My opinion is it's a pretty silly addition, because I mean the expectation was always there for 100 years that you were departing via the SID because that's what you've been assigned.
Isn't that interesting that they've spent so much time trying to reduce the amount of crap that gets said on the frequency, and then they bring in this descendant?
Welcome to Australian Air Traffic Control.
The only thing that is beneficial, which I'm gonna pose the question, I don't know the answer. Arjun, you may know, because you fly with this stuff. But if say I'm at cruising altitude, theoretically, if I'm saying descend via the star, and I don't have to worry about other traffic, I could clear an aircraft to descend via the star when ready to 9000 QNH 1013.
Yeah, it's basically there so they can make SIDS and stars like they do in America with like 1 million altitude restrictions and clear you all the way down to 3000 from cruise altitude. So it's like the first step to making that change happen.
Also, yeah, that's right. So you cleared down to 3000.
Yeah,
but
the pilot has
you've
to
still
read
got to
it
run the
instead
steps.
of waiting for the ATC to tell them what to do.
Well, you've still got to run the steps of the star.
Yeah. Well,
and do
now
the
ATC still step you down. Yeah, theoretically, yeah. Every time they descend you, they still step you down via the CTA steps one by one, and they say descend via the star every time. But it's designed so in the future they won't have to do it.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question. Do they have to say every time we tell an aircraft to descend or climb, we have to say descend via the star?
Only if they're actively flying a SID or star. So, for example, when they're coming into Sydney, it'll be the descent down to 9000 and then the descent down to like 6. But then once you've turned them for vectors, then you don't need to say that anymore.
Yeah, okay.
So can you just confirm that terminology for me again? It would be, what would be the clearance given?
So Q-Link 476 Delta climb via SID flight level 240.
Yes. So that actually clears you on your SID, and then of course you're not on the SID.
That's only an altitude thing. So the clearance for the SID is different. This is a clearance for you to follow the altitude via the SID.
Yes, I understand. But you're definitely going to be way out of the SID when you're at 240, yeah?
No, but it's not. Not necessarily. But it's basically saying fly via the constraints of the SID to flight level 240. So once you pass the last point, then there's no more constraints, and your plane should recognise that anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And Arjun, that's very well said. I appreciate that, and thanks, Callum.
A lot of extra words for something that should have been common sense, you know.
I think it's in the hopes of reducing the words in the long run. So it's like one step back, it's like one step back for potentially 4 forward in the future.
Well,
maybe.
I think, eventually they should be able to, and especially if it's not busy and they know they can assure positive separation, there's no reason why why eventually they won't start going descend via the start to 3,000 feet, like there's no, I probably end up that way, but anyway.
Callum, just a bit of background to how that came about. There's a lot of issues in the UK. You're probably aware if you've flown over there that the SIDs have a cap altitude of 6,000.
Yep.
So there was always the question of, once you're cleared above 6,000, does that cancel all of the restrictions on the SID or does it not?
Yeah.
So part of the reason this all came about, and it's an ICAO standard as of about 9 months ago or something like that, that it made it clear and unambiguous as to whether you're going to say flight level 100 with that 6,000 restriction, or you're going straight to flight level 100 ignoring the SID restrictions.
You mean 10,000 feet?
Well, in the case of the UK, it would be.
Right. Sorry.
Callum, I had a couple of controllers also talk to me recently about something and Tracy, that needs to be brought up and needs to be amended. I've noticed also as a pilot recently in the last year that there has been some ATC direction that's been given to me, and it's turn left heading 220, track direct to TSAT. Well, I can't do both.
That's interesting.
That's def is not right.
Did you submit controller feedback?
No, I was a pilot at the time.
Tell the controller?
No, I was a pilot at the time, and I talked to them about it. I said, I can't do both. What would you like me to do? And he said, I can't remember. But at the end of the day, I actually had just recently, in last week, I've had another couple of controllers have a chat to me about the same thing, and they've showed me in the training that it actually does show it in the training, in the ATC training.
Oh, that's in there, is it?
Sounds like they might be losing 2 words is when able.
Yeah, well, that would make sense. That would correct it all, but it doesn't, unfortunately, Trent, because they're not putting in the words. And also, they sent me the text. Anyway, it's something that we can talk about and get fixed.
Shame you didn't bring that up when Dan was still in the room, but yeah, fill out the feedback thing, Daryl, and that way he can't say he didn't hear about it.
Yeah, sure, mate. No worries. Will do. It's just something that, I know that a controller's trying to do his best, but he just doesn't understand that you can't give me a heading and a track 2 at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
You're picky, Daryl.
Split the difference, mate. Split the difference.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I hold heading 225.
You're a big boy. You can figure it out.
I hold heading 225, then he's going to call me up and say, why aren't you tracking to TSAT? And I go, well, what do you want to do, you moron?
I know what you mean, and I've heard a couple of people do something like that. I think it's one of those things that people have picked up, that they need to give you a heading some of the way, but then they expect you to track direct. I don't know where they picked it up, but I know what you mean. I've heard a couple of people.
Yeah, they're just trying to be helpful. They're just trying to give me a vector, but unfortunately, they give me a direct 2.
Yeah.
What it comes from is being unsure of whether the pilot knows where TSAT is or not.
Or indeed whether he knows where 220 is.
It's in the middle of the runway.
Well, we figure he's got a better chance of 220 than TSAT.
Okay, guys, I'll catch you guys later.
See ya.
See ya.
User disconnected from your channel.
What's 220? Oh, I see.
Southwest.
I like the
Close
ones
enough.
that say climb. I like the
110.
ones that say climb and maintain flight level 22,000.
Wow.
What about re-cleared? That used to be in the terminology for a lot of years. Are we still using that in terminology? Re-cleared
Yeah.
7,000?
Yeah, I still use it.
Good, good. Because I've been saying it, and then I'm starting to wonder. I wonder if it's been dropped or not. Okay.
No, I'll do things like re-cleared present position, direct TSAT or something.
Yeah, I've done that. I don't know if I'd go re-cleared
I think
7,000.
you
I
might
just would
find it's
screw
not.
up in the first place.
I think you'll find it's not in the phraseology books.
Yeah, you're supposed
Look,
to just say cleared, not re-cleared.
Re-cleared used to be in the phraseology books, David, and that's why I wondered if it was still there or
Yeah.
not.
So I guess the rationale is, I'm clearing you for this. So you get a clearance at the start of your flight, assuming your whole flight's in controlled airspaces. Every single clearance you're going to get subsequent to that, a re-clearance.
Oh.
Well, no, I would only do it if I'd changed a clearance that I'd already given to someone.
But see, when you give your airways clearance at the start, I've already been cleared to my destination at 5,000 feet. That's my clearance. Now you're changing it to flight level 370.
No. You're missing that one, David. I'm talking about, let's say you're cleared to descend from 12,000 to 9,000. You're heading down to 9,000, and then they say re-cleared 7,000.
I'll just
But
say
that's
descend
the
now.
same situation. Isn't that not the same situation?
I would never use
I've been
it
cleared to a
vertically,
level,
only
and now I've
laterally.
been cleared to another level.
Yeah, it used to have the word re-cleared in the AIP, but we don't use it now anymore, hey?
Is cancel SID and cancel star still used?
Yep.
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 Yeah. Come on,
Yep.
Yeah. And are you meant to say it if you're tracking from Boogie and then they're cancelling you from going direct to TSAT for 1.6?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you sure about it?
If that's what the star designates and they want you to not do that, yes.
What the star does, the star goes all the way to TSAT.
Well, then they're going to have to cancel it to get you to change that. Otherwise, you're going to TSAT, yeah?
But doesn't it say expect vectors for blah, blah, blah?
That's right. So ATC should be on top of it and give you a vector, yeah, David?
Yeah, because I haven't heard cancel SID or cancel star unless they do it really early.
It's not a common thing, simply because we normally are controlled by an ATC that isn't overloaded and extending to Singapore.
I mean, I think technically they should be, because as soon as they do that, it changes the responsibility of basically, terrain clearance and stuff like that from the pilot to the controller.
But doesn't that happen regardless? Say you're just on a flight plan track and then they turn you left, it happens then as well. They don't say cancel flight plan track, turn left heading 250.
I'm just going, it definitely says in the AIP that they have to say cancel SID though. So I don't know why they don't have to say cancel flight plan track or whatever. But...
you don't cancel flight plan track because it's only a deviation.
But
it's
the
not
vectors is still part of the star though. No,
it's like saying,
I
it's like
agree
saying
with the SID, sorry, the vectors is part of the star where it says expect radar vectors to blah blah blah.
To cancel a flight plan track would be to say, okay, a 747 takes off out of Sydney, it turns right, you get told by approach to join your flight plan route. He joins the flight plan route, and then the center controller says cancel flight plan track. That means the whole thing all the way to Singapore is cancelled.
No.
Yeah,
they
can
can
use that
cancel
as an
the SID and then
example.
tell you
You know,
to
it's a
resume the
crazy,
after.
it's a crazy exaggeration.
They can cancel the star and then tell you to resume it at another point if they really want to. But
Without a doubt. Because you're TMA,
They do that at Melbourne all the
what
time.
we're talking about is TMA things here. Cancellation is in TMA. It is not outside of TMA. You don't cancel the whole routing.
Well, you do if an airways clearance is amended on route.
So you're talking about you're gonna tell a 747 that's flying from Australia to Los Angeles that his whole route is devoid, and that he has to re-enter the whole thing in the FMC because of what? It doesn't make sense.
Only if he requests it.
Well, that's a change of route. It's not a cancellation of route.
It's a reclearance according to the phraseology documents.
Yeah, but it's not a cancellation. I haven't cancelled your star like I've cancelled your star. I think that's what we're talking about, cancellation of star and SEDS. It's not a cancellation of your routing. It's just a recalculation.
Well, the
that
cancellation
you want to do.
of your SID or star implies that the rest of your navigation will be under VEX until you're instructed to go to a specific point under your own navigation. If you cancel the SID or star and are expecting it to be rejoined, then you have to say cancel the SID, expect to rejoin at.
That's exactly what happens at Melbourne. Sometimes when runway 27's being used for arrivals from the northwest, is they'll come in on the Arby arrival, and then they'll say at Arby cancel the star track direct Paula, at Paula resume the star.
Yeah.
Well, that's just track shortening, isn't it, Tracy?
Well, yeah, but it's
It
effectively
is
the
track
cancellation
shortening, but it's
and the
track
rejoining.
shortening.
The end result of it is track shortening, but it's still cancelling the star, but being told to rejoin the star.
But I don't think that's what Daryl said before. He agreed with the cancel the SID or the star, but cancel the route. Like, I don't fully understand all of it, but I'm picking up on that and understand that if you cancel a route, you've got to redo the whole route. Re-input a whole route in again. But a cancel of a star or a SID, that makes sense.
If our controllers are saying cancelling the route, then they're doing something completely wrong.
Yeah,
agree.
That's not standard
what
Daryl
was
saying. The cancel star, cancel SID, is it still the
SID or star makes sense.
We weren't saying that anyone was saying it. We were just saying that if obviously when they take you off your route, they are accepting responsibility for terrain unless they say visual. Then it puts it back onto the pilot. Arjun just came up with the point. Well, if they're saying that on a star, shouldn't they be saying it, for example, on a route? And obviously they don't. It's not in the phraseology, so that's just the end of it, really.
Yeah, that's right. If you deviate off your route due to weather, they'll give you traffic avoidance, but they're not going to be vertically separating you because you're. Well, I suppose they do still have that.
Talking about
they do still have that responsibility.
As soon as you're radar vectored,
you're under radar.
You're getting
yes.
terrain separation from ATC.
Yeah. So you're still under radar. As long as you're radar identified, you're still going to have that vertical separation. But at the end of the day, they're not going to cancel your whole routing just because of a cloud. So I don't know. In the countries that I flew at, they were a lot different to Australia. I did fly in Australia, but I didn't fly 747s out of Sydney and Melbourne. So, it's a lot different. Every aviation the pilot is different in what his career does and what he sees and what he learns. It's totally different. I've flown in a country where there were six different transition altitudes and transition levels in the one country. Guys don't understand that there's different transition altitudes and transition levels everywhere you go. In one country I flew, there was 6 different transition altitudes and transition levels. So every airport we went to, there was a different transition altitude and transition level.
Did you sign an NDA with that country, or you want to tell us where it is?
No, it's Burma. Burma has 6 TAs and ROs. Also, I used to fly the Twin Otter in South Sudan, and when I was about 20 kilometres out of 20 nautical miles out of this specific place, out of Boer, I used to call up all stations call. There was no one in the area. There was no one for 1,000 miles, and there was a war on, and people were shooting SAMs, and no one wanted to be there. And I would call up all stations, Boer, Red Cross 881, a supersonic Twin Otter is 20 nautical miles from Boer. We're going to be there in 1 minute. And of course, I was only ever 1 minute away. So when I got there, 1 minute later, I would say, all stations Boer, Red Cross 881, a subsonic Twin Otter is now circuit area Boer.
And we'll expect that tomorrow night on the milk run.
Yeah, but you know, of course, these are things that you know, as a Vatpac or you know, that you may not have heard that there's this amazing world of aviation out there that is very amazing. It's what I've spun an aircraft through 270 degrees, a Twin Otter in 270 degrees, landing in the Solomons when I lost control of it. And I spun one engine into reverse and one engine into forward to try and create a braking system. And, you know, I mean, we just don't run those sorts of simulations here in Vatpac. But there's an amazing world if you ever get into it.
I've seen Cessnas doing supersonic speeds online.
There you go.
Flight
But
level
I'm so proud to be
600.
involved in this community, and I think that it's a wonderful excitement of aviation. It's just that yeah, I want you guys to understand there's more to SIDS and stars in Sydney and Melbourne, that's all.
There's more. Thank you. Can we have another drink, please?
There's more than
Flicky, you joined rather late, but just to let you know, Flicky, you joined the channel way after the town hall meeting ended.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot. I kind of forgot it was on looking after the kids, and I joined, and everyone's thanking everyone, and
Technically, it ended 13 minutes after it started, but you know.
fair enough. Then. Obviously, it was a cracking town hall meeting.
Were there any questions involving the operations department?
There was, but you weren't here. I can't remember what it was.
Couldn't have been that important then.
I'm sure it was recorded.
I was just going to say, didn't you have your voice recorder switched on in flight?
I don't know. Was Trent allowed to do that?
Yeah, maybe not.
Try poking Owen because
You did it,
he struggled valiantly in your name.
Hello.
Your boss
Hey,
is
Daryl.
asking if there were any operations questions in the town hall meeting.
Are there any operations questions?
Well, you answered them.
God. Did I? Sorry, I've been on
What were they?
for a bit.
Owen, you should have full attention on here.
I did, but like, it went off on a tangent. A really big tangent. Let me think. Operations questions. Something about alias files, CPDLC stuff. Something to do with PDCs being like a mandatory requirement, I think. Like, that's what I picked up.
PDC is a mandatory requirement. Okay, well,
Depending
I'll
on
talk
like
to you about that later.
I mean, like, depending on traffic or whatever. Something like that.
Is it a good idea to cancel voice?
Sometimes.
I mean, PDCs and computer pilot data link communications, all we're doing is get rid of voice. So aren't we shooting ourselves in the foot?
Yeah, but do you use computer data pilot links on approaches?
No, CPDLC is for distance, but PDCs is for TMA, is for localized. So, you know, but you end up having an ATC that just uses text.
On approach? Good enough
No,
with bloody
no, I
pilots
don't.
anyway.
No, I don't. I don't use PDC and I don't use CDPLC simply because I want to talk to the guys. I want to have that human connection. Otherwise, it's just boring to me.
Situational awareness.
Yeah, well, I don't even like it when guys say they're only text because I lose that connection with them.
Yeah.
Well, you must have hated that discussion with me the other night, Daryl. It was all text.
It kills me.
That was killing me.
Just remember, there's lots of different reasons why people use text rather than voice.
No, totally,
stop
Tracy.
it.
I'm not picking on anyone that can't afford an $8 headset and a $12 voice card. I'm not picking on them.
Or
but,
a $250 set of earbuds to at least receive.
Yeah, they've got a $300 computer and they can't afford a $2 headset to receive. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
but
I'd
anyway,
rather no voice.
I'm with you, Daryl.
But I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not going to pick on them, Tracy. I'm not picking on them. I'm just saying it is so much easier with voice. That's all.
I think you're misunderstanding me, Daryl. I have no objection to having a go at the people that spend thousands of dollars on a computer but won't spend $10 on a headset. I'm more concerned about the people who, for a physical reason, are unable to use voice. So keep them in your mind too.
That's 0.1%.
I'm just getting it now. Stand by.
Or
Speaking
when,
of-
when you're
speaking of
in
operations-
I'm pretty sure.
Tracy,
I'm
Tracy,
Gentlemen,
Tracy,
if I can throw
Tracy,
something.
sorry, hang on, Christian.
I
Tracy,
think it's
I need you. I need you to
the
remember my
Dark's
job.
arrival.
Yes,
Tracy,
yes,
I
I know,
need you
I
to
know.
remember my job and what I do for a living to
The
help
Dark.
people.
do, and
yeah,
I am
risk my
also
life every
appreciative
day
of your
for these
family.
people. I risk my life every day for these people. I'm not gonna. I'm not
And
gonna
then
pick on
I'm
them.
editing it to go from L225 to nylon, and it's a nylon transition for the runway.
User in your channel was kicked.
And would
from
you
the
turn
server.
off your microphone, Callum?
User joined your channel.
Just quickly, speaking of operations, is the outside tower hour procedures for certain airports being used, or we still haven't implemented that yet?
What?
User
What do you mean?
joined your channel.
With regards to controlling, say, Hobart, Launceston, Rockhampton, and Mackay outside tower hour, or when tower's
Yep.
not on, are we
Is that not at
implemented
the?
those changes with regards to centre controlling down to a lower level into class?
I think we made that change about 5 years ago, something, when it came out.
I don't think we
It's
have.
just that no one actually did it.
Yeah, no one does it. No one
Are
knows
you
about
talking about the top-down, Robert?
No, this is a different, slightly different issue. This is
Okay.
what they're doing real world and whether we're implementing it or not, and we did it many years ago.
What are they doing real well?
Melbourne Centre provides approach services for Hobart and Launceston outside of tower hours, and Brisbane Centre does the same for, I believe it's Mackay and Rockhampton.
Is that like Australia-wide everywhere, or?
No, it's at those 4 aerodromes, and I believe we have a procedure covering that at the moment.
They offer airways clearance while on the ground, or while the aircraft's taxiing, but not actual takeoff clearance.
Is that
So it's an
documented,
approach
David,
service.
somewhere?
It is.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
documented in the ERSs.
I don't know. We have a document on it. I don't know if it's currently published. It was published at one point.
It's on the ERSs for each airport, Richard.
Yep. So it's an approach service. Obviously, you can't provide an aerodrome service sitting in an underground bunker.
It's down to the lower level.
Where did you say it was listed, Robert?
It's in the ERSs for each airport on the Air Services website.
User disconnected.
Yeah, that doesn't help vets and or vet
I
controllers.
couldn't tell you
so
where.
they won't look there.
I couldn't tell you where it is after.
Where it is on Vatpac. But that's why I was just asking if it is something that has been implemented, because I think we even spoke about this last town hall meeting, but still no one does it. And I don't care, but it would be nice.
Yeah,
That's interesting. I never
if there's
heard
a document on it that controllers could be made aware of, then it should be somewhere where they can readily access it.
Yep, it used to be on the website. However, I think we've changed the website since I was in that role, and don't know what my successor did with it.
I'm just concerned
Well, if I
that
can find
Callum's
it, I'll get
never
it
heard
up
of it.
there.
Gentlemen, would like to ask the question if this is appropriate time, and I know time is short, for text pilots that insist on priority.
It's in the
and what
actual
is-
ERSA, Richard, for your knowledge anyway.
And what is Vatpac's policy on it?
On what?
Text pilots that insist priority, and what is Vatpac's policy on it?
Well, the VAT sim policy is that they don't get priority, but you shouldn't prioritize somebody else over a text pilot.
So in MATS, near the start somewhere, there's a heading called Traffic Priorities, and that basically covers off what our controllers should be doing with regards to priorities.
Right. Thanks.
Basically, it's what you'd expect. Arrivals get priority. People using the runway get priority over people who aren't, etc.
There's just, I'm seeing a huge number of increase of text pilots demanding priority over voice.
Yeah, part of the trouble there, I think, will be that
User joined your
if
channel.
they are truly text and they can't hear what's happening on voice, then to them it looks like there's nothing happening except that they're waiting. And they might not necessarily be able to see that there's about 20 other people before them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
I just use it as a priority as soon as I check and see if they got a V or a T. And also I will say to them, do you receive voice? And when they reply with a response, and I know that sometimes they get, there's no way that they can respond. Alpha Bravo Charlie descends 6,000. You can expect the ILS runway 16 right. The wind's 13007 knots and blah, 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 blah. There's no way they can write all that down on the text. So I just say, can you please respond in the Roger? Look, it's never written. It's not approved, but I just say it to them to just try and make it easier for them so that they can fly their planes.
Most of them just copy paste the instruction anyway, Darryl.
Yeah.
But I've said it verbally. I'm talking about they can receive voice, but they can't transmit.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And then they just transmit Roger, and then I know they've got everything that I said. Well, inshallah, if God wills it.
Yeah, I suppose you are.
I think it's also beneficial to, if let's say Wollongong and Snowy is online. I've been in the unfortunate experience where aircraft was handed over, but I wasn't aware the aircraft was on text. So I think it's as a courtesy that controller should notify the other controllers saying, by the way, you know, Qantas 123 is on text.
It should be in the tag, so
Should be,
yeah.
absolutely. Yep, I'll take that back. My apologies. Yep.
No, I know what you're saying, Christian. Just an add it to
shot.
that would help definitely. Sometimes you're quite busy and you miss it. I know what you mean.
Exactly.
Okay, I'd just like to bring up the TPP with Trump and Australia.
Is this a town hall meeting or a political discussion?
Worries.
I'd like to know when Vatpac are going to become more equal and have like a 50-50 gender policy.
Does anyone maybe want
That's
to
right.
discuss Barnaby Joyce?
Just hang on, let me check. Honey, do you want to have a go? No, she just told me to piss off.
Gentlemen, can I ask on a serious note, is with supervisors, are they actually monitoring our frequency or do we have to text them?
No. If
You have to
supervisors monitored every frequency, I think their ears would die.
I think Tracy wouldn't be a supervisor anymore.
He did.
No, we don't monitor any frequency.
But you never know.
They just watch Netflix and wait for a dot wallop.
Right.
Don't tell the secrets.
Oh no, NBN is great. You're kidding me. But if the box works.
The Palmy Army, who's that? The Millennials?
Clive Palmer's army. The Palmy
Nicholas.
army. He's got an army.
Yeah, how'd Lambie go last night?
Guys, I actually would like to stress the fact that there has been some increase, let's say centers online and approaches online, where center first online, they've got, let's say, Sydney ATIS, approach comes online, approach says, no, you can keep the ATIS. What is the policy? And I know the answer, but I want to enforce the fact that what is the correct procedure where ATIS, who owns the ATIS in that case?
Tower.
Well, let's say tower's not online. Let's say approach is online.
It should be
and
whoever's
center's online.
controlling that airport. So if approach was online, then approach would take over, which is
And if
part of
approach
code
says,
regulations.
can you take the ATIS?
Well,
If
a
approach-
discussion
if-
like
it is
respectful
trade.
adults is in order. You can, I mean, yes, okay, whoever is actually controlling the aerodrome should control the ATIS, but in the scenario you've just outlined, Christian, if centre say, oh, look, there's an approach online now, I'll give him the ATIS. If centre doesn't want the ATIS, it's up to approach to do the ATIS, but if approach says to centre, do you want to keep the ATIS, and centre is happy to keep the ATIS, that's fine as well.
Okay, understand. Thanks for clarifying that.
General rule of thumb is the lowest controller that actually controls the aerodrome. So if it's just center, he does it. If approach is online, he should do it, but they can coordinate otherwise, and it's all the way down to tower.
Yep. Right.
Whoever controls the runways.
Yeah. I've heard that in the raft, ground does it, but ugh.
Yeah. Have we got any raft people here?
I think the point is that it's not as important as who's doing it, but Tower is ultimately responsible for setting the content. If it's easier for Tower to do it, then they do it. If it's easier for them to get someone else to do it, but still controlling the content, then I think that's been common practice as well.
I think if you're doing some fancy runway setup, it should be discussed with approach and ground anyway.
Yeah, I recall it somewhere in the policy that it says exactly that.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I think we should have some more events.
What a great point, mate. Beautiful.
Let's do a Karatha event or something.
Sounds great.
We should realistically go to Hamilton Island.
Yeah, but if we do Karatha, who would have Karatha-itis?
Can we go to London Heathrow?
You would.
Yeah,
Sydney
get
Heathrow.
get Ips out here.
Yeah, Ben
How
Ippolito
about-
would, and you can argue with him.
How about more events that, like... Oh, I forgot. God dang it. Hang on.
Great job, Owen.
I know, right?
Good suggestion. I'm gonna take that on board.
Yeah.
The Alzheimer's event. Where are we flying to again?
Is that a trivia question, Phoenix?
When was the last time Alice Springs was controlled? Well, unless he's logged off, it's still getting
Well,
controlled
last
now.
night.
Wasn't during well flight, that's for sure.
Oh, well, if you're gonna take a crack at
here we go.
Flight, here we go. I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Still
but
there.
you made a comment
Point
earlier
getting.
that you've seen a Cessna's going supersonic. Well, I've seen an FA-18 going supersonic through bloody world flight traffic at Alice Springs. So you settle down, mister.
Air Force One.
I have a rock solid alibi.
Oh, wow.
I was in the sim. I couldn't be doing two things at once.
Yeah, well.
You're in the sim flying the
Copy.
F-18.
Departure check completed.
Bypass pin inserted.
Autopilot on. We go
Release
over to
parking
the
brake.
separate computer.
If you're in an
Release
Airbus,
parking
press
brake.
the zoom button now.
Actually, I can
Release
remember,
fucking
Tracy,
brake
you
now.
coming into an airport when we were doing a VFR flight one night in a bloody jet on the Sunshine Coast without any announcement.
I
Do
thought I'd
you
destroyed
remember?
everyone who remembers that.
Hey, you haven't destroyed. I just remembered. I thought, hang on, there were two jets came in, and all the VFR guys were coming into land. There's two jets coming in the other way, and we were all on Unicom, and we're all announcing on the frequency. And here's this jet 737 or an A320 off the top of my head, comes screaming in the other way. Had all the Cessna 172s going in every direction.
Yeah, good night.
Are you still flying remote controlled 4-engine rated helicopters, Tracy?
6-engine ones and 8-engine ones.
Oh, fancy.
Mm.
Can they still fly if you get an engine failure?
A 6-motor one, I can sort of auto-rotate down to a controlled crash.
You're going down to the Hudson.
Not quite that pretty. It didn't happen to me, but one of my friends who has the same drone had a failure on a hexacopter, and he said you can expect to auto-rotate around the failed motor all the way down.
Pretty quiet in here. We got some text pilots, have we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, time to log off
they're
then.
down there. They're down there asking for flight following for circuits.
Where's Nick? He can teach them how to talk.
Right. Get yourself a new mic, Theodore.
I ain't no text pilot.
Yeah, me either, but yeah.
He kind of sounds like Jacob.
Kind of
Just
sounds
like
like
typing.
Harrison. What was the question you had, Harrison, just then?
Sorry, Kyle, what?
They both kind of sound like Kyle.